In this video, we're going to build a complete homepage completely from scratch, and I'm going to show you the kinds of things I do when working in Thrive Architect to make a homepage build like this as efficient as possible. So I'll show you specifically what I do to save time and make this build as fast as possible. Hello, I'm Shane Milach from Thrive Themes, and let's get started right away. We're building a fitness-themed homepage completely from scratch. This is where we start. So as you can see, this is just a page. I've opened Thrive Architect, and this is just the default WordPress theme. So the first thing we do is we go down here and we choose a landing page template. And as almost always, or always perhaps, I start with the styled blank page. This is the first time saver actually, because the styled blank page has a couple of things already set up that I then don't have to go and do. So for example, it's already got a basic section set up that I maybe tweak a little bit, but it saves me a couple of steps. Almost always the next thing I do is that I customize my fonts. That is kind of one of the basic style elements. So I'll go to page setup and landing page settings, and in here also I'm going to remove the theme CSS because I don't want to load any theme styles or anything from plugins here, so might as well remove that and make the page a bit faster. And then go to edit page texts, and here we're going to have a go at these fonts. So first of all, I have all text selected, and let's just apply a color here. The first color that I'm going to apply is this one right here, which is my color. I just pasted this in. This is my color for basically all the fonts. So I'll save this. I might use this later. I'll save this to my palette and apply it. Next up, I want a different heading style, and I want all headings to have the same font. So if we go back to all text here, I select one of the headings, and then in the breadcrumbs, I go one back to select all headings because I want this to apply to all of them. And then I change to Google Fonts and Playfair Display, which is a really nice font. And we're going to go with 400 and 700. So that's the regular and bold font weight. And I want the italic version as well, especially important for a font like this, because the italic version is rather beautiful. If you don't include the italic version, it will just kind of take the normal version and skew it. And that's not quite the same as the specially designed italic version. Okay. So I apply that, and then we want some font size changes. The first one at 50 is fine. I think line height is probably also fine. And some of this stuff I already know what I want, right? Another way to do this is to come back to this screen whenever you're changing, whenever you're adding fonts, but I already know what I want from some of these here. So we can do it like this. I know that I want this one to be 39. I don't know that I want this one to be 25. I also know that I'm not going to use any of the others, but in case I do, I'm just going to make the rest of the headings a bit smaller. So my thinking here is that maybe I'll get around to using some of these other sizes, and I'll have something usable already. That's why I style all of them already. Okay, next we have our paragraph, which here I want to use a different font. So here I want to change this to Montserrat. And I want to change that to 300, so it's a bit lighter, a bit thinner, and 600 for the bold text. And then I think that is good. Then for the hyperlink, I don't think there's going to be any hyperlinks in here. We could style this, but from this page, I'm going to just leave that. For my plain text, I'm just going to apply the same as I did just before. So by default, my plain text is basically going to look the same as my paragraph text. And that's my setup, and I might come back here and make some tweaks, but that's my setup to start with. Now, another thing I'm going to do, I have I'll use this, let me get rid of this. I'll use this as my default section, and if you've watched me do these build videos before, you've seen me do this before, I'm going to increase the spacing here. I want a bit more white space, so it's like by default I want this much white space in my sections. And the rest is set up as I like it, and I'll just duplicate this a couple of times. And then we're pretty much ready to go. Now, we will start with a split layout. So right away, we're getting into some interesting layout stuff. and the kind of stuff that you can really do well in Thrive Architect, and you can't do well or you can't do at all in other kinds of page building products. So I put some columns in here because I want this kind of split layout to go the full width of the screen. And I will remove, let me see, I'll remove this stuff here. So no spacing around it basically. And then I want this split to be uneven. Let's say 40-60. So you can drag this to any value you want, or you can hit Control and drag it in 5% increments. So that's what I did there. Next, where do we start? Let's start putting some content in here and make adjustments later. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a logo in here. And I uploaded one already, so I'm just going to search for it. Here's my logo. So like I said, this is a fitness themed site. And okay, here's the first thing. Actually, no, not yet. Let me put some more stuff in here. So here we have a heading which is like, are you ready to get in the best shape ever? And I'll make this italic and bold. And let's say we have some text here as well. And I just want to show you, so I wouldn't actually build it like this, but I want to quickly kind of show you the logic behind what I'm doing. I'll just paste some text in here that I already have. So my problem is, over here I'm going to have an image, and then here I want my content. But as you can see, the content is basically going all the way from the edge here to all the way to the edge here, and that doesn't look nice. So how do I fix this? Well, the way I do it is I have this column going across the whole screen for the image that we're going to put over here. The way I do it is I simply, in the column with my content, I put a content box. Let me just put it at the very top here. I'll put a content box here with no spacing. And this content box, actually I put it in the wrong place. Let me put it here. Because I will adjust the width of this content box to be, I'll right align it. I want the width to be this wide. See this? I want it to be this wide. So that it will basically it will flow with the rest of the content, right? That's the width I want to go for. I will, and then I'll put my stuff in this box. So I'll put all my content in this box. Now, when I build this, I actually do that first. I put the box in first, and then I put everything in the box. But I just wanted to show you the logic behind it before I did that. Another thing I'm going to do is I want some padding on this column, because I never want this content to stick all the way to the edge. So I just added a 20 pixel padding here, which you can't see yet, but on a smaller screen, that would make a difference. And the same over here. Let's put another 20 pixel padding in here. And that's actually moved it away, so I can go back to my content box here and remove a little bit again, so it's like this, right? So now we have padding on both sides, and we have this content nicely fitting in here. Next up, on this column, I want a background image, and we'll do some nice effect stuff. I'll insert this into post. This image here is a JPEG image because it's a photograph, and I have a separate video about what formats to use and why. So this is a JPEG image because it's a photograph. It's also black and white, which means it's a very small file size. And what we're going to do is we're going to add some color on top of it. So I'll apply this. Maybe I want the top to show, so I prioritize that. And I'll put a gradient over this. I'll put a gradient that goes 90 degrees. And it goes from, it's two colors that we're going to use a lot. So this is my first color. I'm going to save this. And I'm going to do it 70%. And then it goes to a shade of pink, like this. I'll save the solid color shade and then set it to 70% as well. So now we've taken a black and white color and given it our brand colors. And the cool thing is, with this kind of setup, well, it looks kind of cool, and also you can switch out the images behind it. As long as it's black and white image, it's always going to look good. And so you can basically change the images and your brand colors independently of each other. Next up, one thing I want to do here is I want more space. So I think in this column, I'm going to add, I want some padding at the top. Oops, that's the wrong thing. So I selected the columns, undo that. I want this particular column, this one here, there we go. I want some padding at the top. Let's try that again. Just to give it a bit more white space. And I'll maybe also add some at the bottom, not as much possibly, because we're going to put a button in here. So, and again on this button we're going to do some interesting styling things. We'll make this a full width button, and we will set the color to our saved color, the master color here. So right away this will be a usable button, but we'll make it look a bit more interesting than that. And so a few things we'll do. First of all, let's put a gradient on top of this button. In fact, we can use the same gradient that we with the saved colors we have. We can use the same colors to go from here to here on our button. And then on, I also want to add an icon. So I click on Add Icon. I put it on the right side. And then I click on the icon itself, and here I get all the icon customization options. In this case, we're not going to do that much, but I want to have something that points to the right, like this. I want to make it a bit bigger. And on the other hand, I want the text, let me just get the text options here. I want the text to be a bit smaller. And by default, like this, just want the text, I want there to be a bit more space. And so I make the text a bit smaller, but I'll also increase the padding here, maybe to 16 or so, top and bottom, to just make the button a bit thicker without blowing up the text as well. Now, what I want is I want this button to overlap into this section here. And so the logical thing to think would be, okay, I'm just going to apply a negative margin on this side. But that doesn't work. I can also try aligning it here, but then it no longer goes the full width as I want it to. So somehow we can't make this work. In a case like this, so first of all, this, if we just right align it, this could look nice, but I want it to be aligned here and then overlap here, right? So center aligned and full width is the way to go. And in a case like this, if you have a layout problem like this, where it's like, this doesn't work the way I expect it to, always, the first thing to try is put it in a box, okay? And it might sound like I'm joking, but I'm not joking. This works so often. And this is, by the way, not a Thrive Architect quirk. This is about how CSS works, all right? In most cases anyway, this is about how CSS works. So I'm adding an invisible box here, nothing in it. And I'm simply putting the button in the box and then selecting the box and adding the negative margin to the box. And there we go, that works. This is a case, by the way, where I actually don't know why. Sometimes I know a little bit about CSS. Sometimes I know why something like this happens. In this case, I don't know. But that's the first thing to try, put it in the box. What's missing on this button is a hover effect. So let's take care of that. I'm going to go into hover state. And what I want to do here is I'll just add an overlay, a color overlay, like white, almost transparent. That's the easiest way to make this button just light up on hover a little bit. And you can change the colors underneath to anything you want, it's no problem, right? And also to add a bit of a flare here, let's add some rounded corners on one side on hover. So now this button clearly communicates on hover, I am clickable. Another thing, let's make it stand out a little bit. I'm in the default state again, let's just add a shadow with a lot of blur, a bit less distance, and also just less or more transparency, less opacity. There we go. So now we have a really neat button. We have a nice effect here. Great. Over here, here's what I'm going to do. I'm simply going to drop in a template here. Like this. I'm also at this point going to choose the columns and center align the content in the columns. This is the effect I want. This here is kind of an ebook cover type thing that I built in Thrive Architect. And I'll make a separate video on how to do that, okay? But this is our title section done. And yeah, there we go. That looks quite nice. So let's continue with the next section. Our next section starts with a heading, and it says something like, welcome to your new home of fitness or something. I'm not going to put a lot of effort into thinking of titles here. It's an H2 by default when we drop a heading. That's good. I'm just going to make it bold and italic. And then we have some more text. I'll add one more line of text here, which is going to be some line of text. And then we have a highlight section. This is quite a typical thing to do, where we basically want to give people a quick overview of like 3 reasons why you should join, 3 reasons why this is awesome, right? And what we'll do is 3 columns. So we drop 3 columns in here. I think I want to get rid of the spacing here. This kind of default spacing is good when you're writing content, when you're writing a blog post or something. On a landing page, I like to have more precise control usually. And here, I'll keep this really simple. This is mostly about white space, really. We have this layout. I'm going to show you a couple things, what I mean. I'm going to do my usual trick. You'll see that I'm very fond of content boxes. I often use them as a time saver, as I'm going to do here. So what I'm going to do is I have this one content box, and I'll make my little layout in here, which consists of an image like this one, and I'll center align it, remove the top space, and maybe add a bit more space at the bottom. Then I want a heading. It's going to be heading, benefit heading, and also bold and italic, and then H3. So the hierarchy here is, H1. Oh, did I make this an H1? This is supposed to be an H1. There we go. H1, H2, H3, right? That's the correct nesting of headings. And then we have a little bit of text below this. And I'm just going to grab a bit of filler text here. Not sure how much I need. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Now I'm going to select the content box, and I want all the text in this content box to be center aligned like this. And next up, I want more space in between these. So let me just show you. One of the reasons I put a box in here is I can easily duplicate the box, put it here, right? I want more space here between these 2 columns. So the way we do that is we select the columns, and we have the gutter width. That is the space in between the columns, right? So I'm going to set that to something a bit wider, maybe 50. Like this. I think it's too much text actually. Let's get rid of some of it, like this. Another thing that I want to do right away is on the content box. If this space is 50, I want to have a space of 50 at the bottom, so that when these boxes stack on top of each other, they're going to have the same space, right? Sideways and on top of each other. So I'll get rid of this one again. And I think I've done the work I want to do here on this box. So then I duplicate the box, I duplicate it again, and here we go. And then I would just change the content. So then I change the image. I've got a couple more here, like this, change image, like this. So, and then change the text, of course, right? And again, so this is about white space. We've looked at widening the gap between these columns. And I would do basically more of that. I would just be, eyeballing it, just give everything a bit of room to breathe here, right? Like this. And maybe here as well, right? Maybe I just want to have more space below, more space on top. Now, if I do this, right, this is fine actually. We have the space on the image already there. So I'm not going to mess with that. Now, if I do this, so here I have 19 I can either go and apply it here again, or I could make the changes first and then duplicate. But anyway, this is the key to making this layout nice, is to basically give stuff room to breathe, right? Now, at this point, we have to look at mobile responsiveness, which usually I do after every section. I just forgot about it. So let's look at that. Mobile responsive, title section. Here's what it looks like on a tablet. What I want to do here is, on a tablet, I think we should go 50-50, because otherwise it's too cramped over here. But then that's fine. And this also looks fine. I think we don't need to adjust that. What we could do is we could go to the columns and we could increase the width at which these columns break, right? So if you want to give it more room to breathe, that's what you can do. You can say, okay, if it's more than 340 pixels, start stacking them. And then next up, mobile. Here, there's a couple of things. First of all, let's remove this space above the image. And this actually looks great, I think. This looks great, considering the fact that no editing was done here. This looks great on all screen sizes. It's fantastic. But a couple of things I want to change. First of all, the text. Now, I'm not going to, I can either change the text right here, I can change the text size right here, or I can go to my landing page settings and make it a general rule on the mobile view for this to be smaller, to be maybe 40. And then maybe I want heading 2 to be a bit smaller as well. Maybe I want to change this to 35. So, and that's the outside-in principle. Instead of applying something to this individual heading, I go, you know what, I'm just going to make a general rule for all headings to do this at this screen size. So that looks good. This button now has this overlap here that, well, doesn't make sense on mobile. So what I do is select the content box and set this to 0. And just as a quick reminder, right, any style change you make only applies to the screen you're looking at and smaller screens. So we can go and make all these changes we want to make, and it's going to look great on every screen size. So that is the responsiveness taken care of. I should also look at the second section. So here, this looks good. No complaints. All right, so responsiveness taken care of for our first 2 sections. Next up, we are going to give this section a background color, and we're going to use so here we go, background style color. This is a color we haven't used before. I'm going to save that as well in case I need it again. And here I want to create a kind of a zigzag layout with some interesting image effects and some decorations. The first thing to do here is to add columns again. I'm going to do 2 columns. And once again, this automatic spacing we don't need, I think. Now the first thing I'm going to do here is, surprise, add a content box. So we've talked about this in a previous video as well. For images, you can drop an image directly onto the page as an image element. So this element right here. And that's good for many things. But for some layouts, what you can do instead is put a content box on the page and then apply a background image to that content box. And it allows you to do some interesting things that you can't do directly on an image. One of those things is you can more carefully choose the format or the crop of this image, right? I can go like this to choose what this image looks like. And I can also, and then I can swap out this image and the formatting I choose will always stay the same. So that's interesting. We'll also apply this gradient. We'll basically apply the same gradient we've had before, which is 90 degrees from this 70% to this 70%. Apply that. And so we have, again, the same effect. As long as we keep using black and white images, it will always look good. And it'll always be brand consistent with our overlay here. Next, we are going to add a decoration here. To the bottom, we'll just add a slanted edge. Something like this, just because it looks cool. And then I want to add one more little flourish here. So this is a content box, and this is another thing that we can do now with the content box that we couldn't do if this was just an image. So I'm dropping another content box. I'm really, probably I should title this video like Fun with Content Boxes or something. So I put another content box in here, and I'll give it specific dimensions here. I basically just want it like a little rectangle, something like this. And I will add a pattern here, maybe something a little brighter, with a bit more opacity, something like this. And so yeah, let's apply that. That's just a pattern. That's one of the preset available styles here. On the parent content box, the one with the background image, I'm going to set content alignment to bottom, so that sends this box all the way down. And then I will just add a bit of a margin to the side. And that's it. This is just a decorative little image. It's one of those things that you can just build directly in Thrive Architect. You don't have to go into Photoshop and upload, an image with this overlay and all this kind of stuff. It's just all built in Thrive Architect directly. So that's just a little decoration here. On the other side, actually first, before we do that, let's select the columns. And here as well, I just want more space here. Maybe something like 26. I just want more space between these two parts. All right, then over here, we are going to have a heading. And I'll call it something like section 1. And then I'll add a line break and, some title about this section. And I want to apply a color here, which is kind of I have saved this color somewhere, so I'll go copy it. So apply this color here, and that's it. So kind of I have a 2-line title. And then I want, with the same color, I'm going to add a divider here. I'll give it the same color. I should probably also save this color. There we go. I'll make it 2 pixels, and then I'll make it less wide, something like this. And I want less space from the top. And then another thing I want to do is I want to give this a bit of an offset. So I will just add like this. And again, that's just like a little layout thing. We go like this, and then in here we just have our text. So let's grab some text here again. This is just where you explain whatever there is to explain in this section. And let's add a bit more text actually. Let's like this. So this section is suitable for more of this. So then I'm going to choose the column. So the zigzag layout, here's time saving again, right? We have, even though we have a layout which changes sides and has different images and stuff, there's a lot that's going to be in common between the different parts. And so we are going to finish this section first, make it mobile responsive, and then duplicate it. And one of the things I know right away is that I want at the bottom of this, I want there to be some spacing, so maybe 50 before the next thing comes. And then let's look at this on tablet. I think this looks good on tablet. I think there's nothing we need to change here. And then mobile. And here, this is also an advantage of the content box with a background image. I will simply change the height here. And what I can also do is, maybe I also want to change the size of this. On a smaller screen, we can make this a bit smaller. Here, I want to remove this, this asymmetric look and add a bit of space at the top. And then we just have our text. And then that's good. So now that looks good on all sizes. And my process here, I mean, I go through this quickly, but it's quite important, like, first of all, try to make things mobile responsive before you duplicate them, and try to make them mobile responsive in the fewest moves possible. That's always something I think about, right? If there's a way to do the thing I want to do with fewer different changes, that's what I'm going for. Okay, with that said, we take the entire columns layout and we duplicate it. And our second one here, we make some changes to. First of all, we're going to reverse the column order like this. We would change the text and all that. And over here, we can, in just a few moves, we can update this. So we will choose a different image here. And we will go back to decorations. So we have this slanted edge, and we'll simply change the direction of the tilt to match the zigzag. And here as well, we can basically align this to the right and add our spacing to the right instead of the left, like this. So see that in just a couple of moves, we now have two different sections with this zigzag effect, and we had to do almost nothing. And mobile responsive wise, it is basically the same. There's probably almost nothing or nothing we need to do on this section. Let's have a look. Oh, there's actually one thing. No, surprisingly, okay, I thought I would have to unreverse the order, but apparently that's already done, so that's good, nothing else to do. Then I want another one with the image on the left, so I'm going to copy this section, duplicate it, and drop it down here. And just to mix it up, let's do one different thing with the decorations. So once again, I'll choose a different image as my background image here. The decoration, let's do something else. I'm going to drop this above the content box. I'm going to right align it, and I'll make it a bit wider, maybe a bit taller. And what I want to do is I want to have an overlap here. Oops. That looks kind of like this. Now, if I click out of it, you can see that this pattern is above the image because that's the order of the elements on the page, but we can fix that because I want the image to be above. So what I do is I go to, layout and position, and I increase the z-index. Z-index is the order of elements going from the screen to your face. And so now I've given this a higher z-index, and now it stays atop this pattern. Since we've made this change, once again, let's check just to make sure this still looks good on different screen sizes. So far, so good. And here, we definitely have to fix something, right? Because I don't want all this overlap anymore. Actually, hold on. Yeah, that's just too much overlap. There we go. It's too much overlap because the size of this, try that again, like this, because the size of this little decoration has changed. So I have to adjust the overlap accordingly. And then we're good. So this is our zigzag section done. Next up, we'll have another split layout section. Personally, I really like the split layout look. And we do that by using a column directly on the page rather than a background section. I build almost everything else inside a background section, but this is an exception. So I remove all the spacing around stuff. I want it to be unevenly spaced again, so probably 60-40 again. And then we have a couple of things. So where do I start? I want this background here to be dark. So let's start there. Maybe like this, maybe a bit bluer. Like this. And then what I know right away is that I want text in this background to be white. So on the column here, I choose white text. And another thing where we've already seen this. We're going to put a content box in here to adjust, to make our content fit the width we want. So what we have here is a content box. Let's put some padding in the column. I don't know if it matters, but put some padding in the column and choose the content box, right align it and change the width. There we go, something like this. And I'm eyeballing all of this. I think in most cases that is fine. And then we have some content in here. We will have to do some more adjustment because of this edge, so the right edge here. But this is basically a testimonial or author section, whatever you prefer. Then we put some content in here. Let's just grab this again. There we go, it's maybe a bit much. Okay. We definitely need some spacing here. It's not looking terribly nice right now. And we need more spacing, but I'm not sure yet how to apply it. What we need for sure is, let's go back to this column and apply some spacing on the inside. In fact, I want to have an overlap effect here, so let me apply a lot of spacing here. And then go to the content box and adjust the width. Something like this. Then over here, I'm going to build a content box. And once again, this is going to be content box heavy. So let me see if I can explain this efficiently and at the same time, show you why I'm making the choices I'm making. Because I'm going to put a content box here and then I'm going to put two content boxes inside the content box. And here's the reason. I want to have a drop shadow. So on this content box, on the outside box, I want a drop shadow that goes all the way around the thing I'm about to build. So I don't want two separate shadows on two separate boxes, in other words. So the entire purpose of this box here is to have this drop shadow on it, which will make a little less prominent like this. That's the point of this box. Let's remove the inside padding so that it really is an invisible shadowy container. And then we put a content box in here. Remove the spacing from this one and duplicate it. And then we have, actually, maybe let's start with this. Like I said, I want there to be an overlap on this side. And I want the width to be restricted. I want this to be a box maybe like this. Okay. Then in the top box, we are going to use our image effect again. So I'm going to add a background image. And this one is actually, it's not a black and white image. But as you'll see, it still works quite well. So I'm going to add our usual gradient here. 90 degrees. And then the second point is this, 70. So even with a colored image can look good. I'll change the maximum height, the minimum height of this box. Something like this. And then the box underneath, I want to have a background color, this one. And in here, this is just like the name of this person. So I'm going to use, I think we're going to use plain text here, because I don't want any paragraph spacing and stuff. So this is Jane Doe, centerline that, and then and she's, CEO of something. And let's see, let's make this white and remove some of this spacing here. And then let's change this to our other font that we use. So I don't like to mix too many fonts. I think it's good practice for speed considerations as well, is to not mix too many fonts on a page. So I'm using the same title font, and let's make it italic. So we have the same kind of style, we have the same kind of look everywhere, and also we're not loading too many different fonts on the page. One more thing that I definitely want to do here on the container box, I want to have some padding here, maybe 10, something like that, just so it will never stick all the way to the edges of the content. So this I think looks quite nice now, but I want more spacing, like here and here. I want more spacing, right? So how do we do that? I think the best way, there are several ways to do this. I think the best way might be to just increase the minimum height of these columns, maybe not by that much, and then center a line vertically. I think that's the effect I was going for. So there you go. And that's our multi-box construction. With overlap effects and stuff, we always have to check to see what this looks like on mobile. In this case, this still looks fine. We could maybe decide that on this column we want to have padding, so it doesn't go all the way to the edge. That looks a little nicer. But what I should do is I should apply that padding on desktop. So it applies on all screen sizes in between the ones we're previewing here as well. So I'll put it here, then go to tablet, and I'll have to apply it here as well because I already made a change, but that's fine. And then mobile, let's see what this looks like on mobile. So a couple of things we'll have to do. So for sure here we have this extra padding that we don't want. I think we just removed that, that's fine. But here we have too much space, so I think on the columns I want to remove this minimum height. And then on our box construction, I think so. I don't want it to have a negative margin here. I don't want it to have a margin on top. And on this column, I'm going to remove the side margin so that we just have a screen filling box now. I think that's the nicest outcome here for a mobile device. Now, with many of these things, I'm making these decisions about how it should look on a mobile device. I mean, some of this is just subjective, right? There's many ways to do this well. All right, that's our next section all done. Let's save that. And next up, we have a section where we basically can advertise some content or maybe some feature pages or some landing pages, depending on what you use this page for. It's basically some links for people to follow. And we're going to build these links in a specific way. So this is like blog posts or stuff. We're going to build this in a specific way that is kind of interesting. So I'd also have some text about this stuff, which will also centerline. And then we have another one of our 3-column with a box in each column constructions. So let's do that. We have 3 columns. And get rid of this. And then we'll put a box. So we'll start with 1. The principle is the same, right? I start with 1, I style it, I make sure it looks good on all screen sizes, then I duplicate it. That's how I save time in this process. So right away, let's decide about the spacing. I want more spacing than this, let's say 26. And there's no specific reason why I choose that. And I'll add that to the bottom as well, so we have equal spacing on the side and at the bottom. Inside, I want some inside padding, so that's going to be something like 20 inside padding, because, so the rule here is, if you create a box that has content inside it, has text content inside it, always add padding to that box. So that's what I just did. We'll give it a very faint outline, and we'll give it very subtle rounded corners. We can hardly see them right now, but you'll see them later. And then we'll put some content in here. So we have a heading, some heading text here. We'll make this a heading 3. Once again, this is the hierarchy here is, heading 2, heading 3. That's what makes sense here, really. Then I want a divider. Once again, divider. I'll make this pink and just 1 pixel. And what I'll do with Well, first of all, let me remove the top padding because there's already space below the text here. And I want to set the width in percent. Basically, I always want this to be less wide than the box. So the way you can think of it is if I set it in pixels, then the length of the line will stay the same as the box shrinks on smaller screens. But if I set it in percent, the line will always shrink to the same degree as the box around it. So that's what I just did there. Then we insert some text. Let's just grab some text somewhere. Duplicate this. Below divider, here we go. It's too much. Some text like this. And then finally, I want to have a icon. And then we're going to add an important effect here. So I'm going to use this right pointing icon again that we already had in the button. I want this to be way smaller. I want it to be this color, I'd say. And then I also wanted to have an outline with the same color. And I want it to be a circle, so I just make this large. And let's give it a bit more space like this. So padding increases the distance between the icon and the outline. And then finally, background color. We can use this. So that's another thing, by the way, that I'm kind of just doing without much comment is I am reusing the same colors again and again. Right? Instead of trying to reinvent this every time, I'm just using the colors that are already in my palette again and again. And that makes for a much nicer, more consistent visual style on the page. So finally, let's get rid of the margins on this button and right align it so it sits in this corner. Now, the important thing here is this is like a card advertising a blog post or some page that I want people to look at. I want this entire card to be clickable, and I want the card to communicate that it is clickable. So I choose the content box and I give it a hover state. So the entire box gets a hover state, gets a shadow hover state that I'm just going to eyeball. Again, this is actually not great. You can't really see what the shadow looks like in this mode here. We'll have to fix that. But we give it a hover state, and I can choose things inside this box and give them a hover state as well. So let's change the icon color to pink and the outline to pink and the background, I guess, to this. Does that look nice? Oof, no. So here I'm going to choose a different color. There we go. Okay. So I have selected the box. I'm in the hover state of the box, and then I'm choosing things inside the box and applying hover effects to them. So the way that works when I close this is that whenever I hover anywhere on this box, this icon color here changes as well, right? So that's pretty cool. And the shadow here tells us as well that this is clickable. And then also I select the box and I go to animation and action, which is basically what happens when someone clicks on this, and I can insert a link here. So thrivethemes.com, right? Maybe open it in a new tab. So now whenever anyone clicks anywhere on this box, they will be sent to this link that I entered here. That's how that works. Now we check what this looks like on different screen sizes. So far so good. And also good. I don't think this needs any further adjustments. I like this. So we duplicate it and put it in these columns. And then all we do is change the links, change the text, all that. And we've got a beautiful kind of content highlight section. Now note some of the things I didn't do. Because I have my padding set on each section that I duplicated at the very beginning, my white space here, you know, my spacing between different things has just been good. I haven't really had to bother with that. So That's one of the things that we just prepared in the beginning and now didn't really have to worry about anymore. Okay, one final thing. We'll do another call to action section. And for this, I want a layout like this one. I'm going to do another one of these really cool image background split effect things. So I duplicate that entire section. I duplicate the columns there and drop them in here. And then change a few things about it. So I'll remove this. I will change the image to this one, the background image, like this. I'll remove the logo. And well, then I would change some details. I'd change the text here, change the text here. And no, that's basically it. And I think this is fine the way it is already. And then the final thing we could do is, let's quickly do that. We could add a kind of a footer copyright text link type thing. I want some space here between my last section and this. In here, I drop some text, you know, copyright and so on. Center line it. I also, let's just change the height here. I'm not sure why this is because of the paragraph spacing, it's looking uneven. So I guess we can correct that more or less like this. Anyway, I'm not going to do a lot of tweaking on this. Obviously, we can move this around. Maybe I should also reduce the section height here. Anyway, that's not so interesting, right? The footer thing is easily done. One of the things that actually, you know, sometimes I go through this so quickly that I kind of forget about how amazing it is. So this entire section that we duplicated and, you know, created in like 2 seconds also is going to be mobile responsive. I'm pretty confident that this looks good on all screen sizes because we duplicated the thing after already making it mobile responsive. The only thing here is because there's no content in it, this gets scrunched up, and so we can fix that by giving the columns a minimum height like this. So one move, I had to make one move, I have to admit, to fix this. But there we go. I think now we have our home page done. Fully mobile responsive, really strong kind of brand language here, right? Really strong imagery. And that is how you build this entire page from scratch. Now, this page is part of a set that we call Fit Brand. It comes with this homepage as well as several other landing pages that you can start using right away as they are in Thrive Architect. So in Thrive Architect, you can go to your page setup, change landing page templates, and you will find in here a set called Fit Brand with all these pages ready for you to use right away. Let me know if you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know if there's more things you'd like to see me build or more questions you have that you'd like to see me answer about how to build stuff using Thrive Architect. I'm Shane Malach from Thrive Themes. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.